A warm welcome to all my students. Myself, U. Bhavani Kumar, working as lecturer in computer engineering at Durgabai Deshmukh College, Hyderabad. Today we are going to continue our previous lecture. In the previous session we were discussing about arrays, and here we will try to elaborate the concept of arrays, and we will try to discuss what actually a two-dimensional array is all about. And with the help of that concept we will try to write some of the programs, and some of the programs I'll give it as an assignment, which you have to work out, and if time permits I will be explaining even the programs that I gave as an assignment in the next period. Before getting into the details, today we will try to recap the things that we have discussed in our previous class. In the previous class I was discussing regarding arrays. An array is nothing but a set of homogeneous elements, or a set of elements which share a common name. We called it as an array. And why we are studying this array? Whenever the situation demands something where if you have n number of students, or if you have more number of students, and if you want to store the marks of all those students at a single place, then it was not possible for us to store the marks by following the previous method that we have discussed while studying this particular programming concept. Instead, in the previous session we have come up with a concept called arrays, which was used for storing n number of values at a single place. And for storing n number of values at a single place, we have defined a syntax, and that syntax stands to be something like data type, array name, followed by a subscript in which we will be writing the size. Whenever we write this particular syntax, in turn we are telling the compiler to allocate some amount of memory. How much of memory? For example, if I write something like int a of 50 followed by a semicolon, and 50 has to be enclosed in between subscript in a square brackets. If I write a statement something like int a of 50, I am telling the compiler to allocate 50 memory locations. I'm telling the compiler to allocate 50 memory locations with a name called A, and all those 50 memory locations is expecting an integer type of data. That is, I will be storing only integer type of data in those 50 memory locations, and the name of every memory location is A. And to differentiate one memory location with another, what we do, we will use this subscript as a tool to differentiate one memory location name with another memory location name. If I want to store 50 numbers in 50 different locations, and these locations should be always contiguous, that is one after the other. All these memory locations should be in a contiguous fashion. And that is, whenever you define an array, whenever you tell a compiler to allocate some amount of memory for storing the data, automatically the memory will be allocated in a contiguous manner only. That is, the memory will be allocated one after the other, and you have to specify which type of data you are trying to store in that memory location. And that memory location, that particular data type, you have to specify at the beginning. That is int a of 50, which tells the compiler to allocate 50 memory locations, and all those memory locations are sharing a common name called A, and they are expecting an integer type of data to be stored in that memory location. These are all the information that we are giving to the compiler. As and when you define an syntax of an array, automatically the amount of memory that you have subscripted or that you have included in the square bracket, that much of memory will be allocated by the compiler, and subsequently you can store the elements in those memory location. And while discussing this particular concept, even I was telling you that an array doesn't have a bound checking. That is, if I define an array wherein the size is given as 10, let us take, and if I am entering 15 data items in that array, let us take, okay, I have the allocated memory is 10, but I am trying to enter 15 data items. Even though if you enter more number of data items than the required size that is allocated, the array will not prompt any error to you. Instead, it will take that value, but it will throw a logical error while displaying the output of that program. This is a problem. Therefore, you should be very much cautious while giving the data items in the appropriate memory locations of an array. And in this context, based upon the number of subscripts that you put it in the array. We have classified the arrays into three different categories. If you have a single subscript, I have shown this particular concept with the help of a diagram also. That is, if the elements are stored in a contiguous memory locations, and we treat if the elements are stored in only a row, in a single row, then we have called that particular array as a one-dimensional array. That is an array with a single subscript. That is, for example, int a of 10. 10 has been enclosed in between at square brackets. Or if you have only one subscript, then that type of array we called it as a one-dimensional array. Provided if you want to store a data that is there in a table, that is, the table will have set of rows and set of columns. The very good example for this one is a matrix form. A matrix, if you want to store the data as it is, which is there in a matrix, then single dimensional array is not going to accomplish the task. Instead, what we have to do, we have to go with a two-dimensional array. A two-dimensional array will have set of rows and set of columns. Okay, and that particular concept we have not yet discussed. In this particular class, we will try to discuss it. Two-dimensional array. In the previous class, we discussed only one-dimensional array. And the third one is, if you have more than two subscripts. If you have more than two subscripts, then that particular array will be called as a multi-dimensional array. We call it as a multi-dimensional array. That is, we have the height along with rows and columns. And pictorially, I have represented in the previous session. And once we become familiar with the declaration part of an array, how to declare an array? That is, there is a standard syntax wherein we have to specify the data type and then followed by array name. Then within the subscript, we have to specify the size. If these three things are enclosed, then that will be the definition. In turn, you are telling the compiler to allocate the sufficient amount of memory, or the memory that you have specified in the square brackets, and all that memory locations has to share a common name called variable array name, and all the memory locations are expecting an integer type of data. If you can also have float, you can also have char, long, double, okay, depending upon the situation that you have in the program, depending upon the demand or depending upon the requirement of the program, you can have whichever data you want, you can specify that. Now, in this context, even we have defined some of the programs. I have written some of the programs wherein the first program was written to find out the largest of a largest number from a given set of numbers. Okay, in that situation, what we have did, that is, we have allocated some size for an array, and out of that size we may use only lesser number of memory locations. In that case, if I have allocated a of 50, 50 happens to be the maximum number of memory locations that I want my compiler to allocate for my task. But instead of using all 50, I will be using only 10. Okay, and that value I have stored it in n, and then I have asked the user to enter the 10 data items which he has entered, and have stored it in a contiguous memory locations. And thereafter, I have checked each and every element, right from the starting element to the last element. Initially, what did I do? The very first element itself is treated as the largest element, and then I have compared the very first element with the second element. If the second element happens to be the largest element than the first element, then second element is treated as the largest element. And this particular process is continued. Second element is again tested with the third element. If the third element is largest than the second element, third element will be treated as largest. Otherwise, second element will remain as it is. In this particular process will be repeated till the last element. Once you reach on to the last element, whatever the value that is there in the variable called largest, that will be displayed onto the screen. Provided if you want to find out the smallest number from a given set of elements, the very first element itself will be treated as the smallest element, and that smallest element, the first element, will be tested with the second element. In the previous case, we have adjusted our largest variable by checking the value of the second variable. If the second variable value is greater than the first one, then we have adjusted the value of a largest variable as second one. Here, the first element itself, we are treating it as a smallest element. Therefore, whenever we test the first element with the second element, and if you come across the second element which is smaller than the first element, then second element will be taken as the smallest element, and we will ignore the first one. Similarly, the second element will be compared with the third element, and if the third element is not largest, then second element will retain its value. Provided if it is the smallest element, then third element will occupy the place which it has occupied in the previous iteration. That is, smallest element will be the third element, and this particular process will be continued till you reach the last element. and whichever the element that is getting stored in the smallest variable, that will be displayed onto the screen. This is the second program that we have looked at. Then even I have written a program wherein to find out the average. Okay, that is I have defined an array out of n number of elements, out of some maximum size. I have selected only n number of memory locations in which I have asked the user to enter the elements. And then what did I do? I kept a loop, and every time whenever the element has come from the keyboard, that element has been added to the previous value of sum. And at the last I got a grand sum, and that grand sum has been divided with the number of elements that I have, that is nothing but n, and which has resulted me a value, that is nothing but an average value. Now here we will try to look at some of the problems of few more programs pertaining to the one-dimensional array, and then we will switch on to the two-dimensional array. Okay, in this Fibonacci series, okay, the first Fibonacci series is a series wherein the very first element will be treated as 0 by default, the second element will be 1, and if you add first two elements, that will give rise to the third element, which will be the sum of first two elements, and the fourth element will be the sum of second and third element. The fifth element will be the sum of third and fourth element, and this process will continue. And in order to print a Fibonacci series, first of all we have to write some of the header files. Okay, that is in this program I have included two header files. One is your stdio.h, another one is conio.h. Since the implementation of printf and scanf is done in the stdio.h, it is a mandatory for me to use stdio. But even this is not mandatory, but it's an optional part. You have to make a habit of including the header file, so that it will be very much easy for you when you write a C++ program, wherein in C++ programs these header files happens to be the mandatory part. And first of all I will define an array, and that array is given a name called fib, which stands for a Fibonacci series, and the maximum size of this Fibonacci series, let's consider it as 100. Okay, I would like to print, at most I can print 100 elements in my Fibonacci series, and subsequently out of 100, it is not something wherein I will be printing 100 elements or 100 elements of my series every time. Instead of 100 I will go with 10 or 20 as per my requirement desires. In that case I should ask the user using a formatted output function called printf, and I have to prompt a message onto the screen telling as if to enter the number of elements that he desires to print on the output screen. Subsequently what he will do, using a formatted input function which is called a scanf, he will enter the value of n. Once he enters the value of n, that is I am asking how many elements he wants to print in that series, that is Fibonacci series. Similarly, by seeing that particular prompted message on the screen, he will enter some value, and that value I am storing it in n. Let us take that he wants to print only n number of elements out of 100, because 100 is the maximum number of memory locations that I have asked the compiler to allocate for my Fibonacci series. Now, what is the thing that Fibonacci series will have? That Fibonacci series starts with 0. The very first element of a Fibonacci series is 0. The next element of a Fibonacci series is 1. The next element is 0 plus 1, which is 1. That is, previous two numbers will be added up, and that will be the new value of your Fibonacci series. Then 1 plus 1 will become 2, 2 plus 1 becomes 3, 3 plus 2 becomes 5, and this particular process continues. That is, the new number you will get by adding the previous two numbers. Previous two numbers will be added, and you will get a new element of a Fibonacci series. And here, once he enters the n number of elements which he wants to print in the series of a Fibonacci series, the very first element, as we know, the very first element, which is nothing but a fib of 0. 0 stands for the very first index. Always the initialization of an array will always starts from 0 in an array. Therefore, fib of 0 will always be the very first element of your series, which is nothing but 0. And fib of 1 will be the next element, which will be the next element, and which is as 1. That is, these two elements are static. We have to define on our own. You can see the program wherein fib of 0 is 0, fib of 1 is 1. Now from where I should start now? From where I should start printing my numbers? I should start from index 2. I should start from my index 2. That is nothing but I is equal to 2. I should start, my logic actually starts from this particular point. I should start from 2, and n is nothing but the number of elements that I want to print in the series. Therefore, this I has to be compared against this n. Unless and until this value is true, I will go on creating, or I will go on generating the Fibonacci series values. Once the value of I, if it becomes greater than n, then I stop printing the elements of my Fibonacci series. That is, I am starting from, already fib of 0 is 0, fib of 1 is 1. Therefore, I should start from 2. That is fib of 2, I should start from 2, and since it is going till n, I can print all the elements till I reach n. In order to test the condition, the value of I should be either less or equal to n. Once the value of I becomes lesser or equal to n, then fib of 2, the value that I am going to print right now, fib of 2 will be the sum of previous two elements of my Fibonacci series. That is, 2 minus 1 will be what? 1, which is already how much? 1. And fib of 2 minus 2 is 0. That is, the fib of 1, the element which is there in fib of 1 will be added with the element of fib of 0. Fib of 1 will be added with fib of 0. Already we have defined fib of 0 as 0 and fib of 1 as 1. Therefore, 1 plus 0 is nothing but 1. Fib of 2 will be 1. Then the value of I will get incremented by 1. Therefore, the value of I becomes 2, and 2 is again less than or equal to n, where the n value is 10. Let us take. I would like to print 10 number of elements in the series. Then since 2 is lesser than or equal to 10, the okay, fine, 3 is less than or equal to 2, then fib of 3, that is the next element after fib of 2, fib of 3 will be the sum of 2 and 1. 3 minus 2 is 1, 3 minus 1 is 2, that is fib of 2 plus fib of 1. Fib of 2 is 1, fib of 1 is also 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, that is fib of 2, fib of 3 will be 2, and fib of 3 will be 5. Now fib of 4 will be 5, and this particular process continues till this condition becomes false. That is, I am starting from 2, and then I am going till the value of n, till I reach the value n in my series. And till I reach the value of n, I will go on calculating the new numbers of my Fibonacci series, and I will be keeping it in my array. And this is my array. I have defined this array as 100. That is, I have a provision to print 100 number of elements in my Fibonacci series. But out of 100, I am asking the user to enter only n, that is a subset of 100. Therefore, he has entered some value, and that value, let us take it as, that value will be always less than your 100. It will be, let us take it as 10. Therefore, since the two values fib of 0 and fib of 1 are already defined, fib of 0 is defined as 0, fib of 1 is defined as 1. Since already these two values are defined, you are supposed to calculate a new element which starts from fib of 2. Fib of 2 is nothing but fib of 1 plus fib of 0. Fib of 3 is nothing but fib of 2 plus fib of 1. Fib of 4 is nothing but fib of 3 plus fib of 2. And this particular process continues till this condition becomes false. Once this condition becomes false, then automatically what will happen? You have to terminate your program. Once you have generated all the elements of your Fibonacci series, right from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because if you take the value of n as 10, then the number of elements that you will be printing will be till 9. If once you have generated all those elements, then we have to print all those elements. Therefore, this printf is a formatted output function wherein whatever the characters that you write in between these inverted commas will be printed or prompted as it is onto the screen. Elements of the series are right from 0 to n. Right from 0 to n, you are trying to print the elements, and all the elements are stored in an array. That is, right from the value of I is equal to 0 and 0 is less than or equal to 10. If you take the value of n as 10, 0 is less than or equal to 10. Therefore, the very first element which is stored in fib of 0 will be printed. Fib of 0 value is 0. Then the value of I gets incremented 1. That is, I value will be 1. 1 is less than or equal to 10. The condition is true. Therefore, the element fib of 1 will be printed. Then fib of 2 will be printed. 3 will be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All the elements will be printed. Once the value of I becomes 11, then this condition becomes false, because the value of n is 10 and the value of I is 11. 11 is not less than or equal to 10. Therefore, this condition becomes false. Once this condition becomes false, your control will go directly to statement X. At statement X we have getCH. GetCH is nothing but a unformatted input function which will be used for printing or showing the output without taking any with taking a single character from the keyboard. And that particular character can be anything. That particular character can be anything. Now if you like to see the output will be something like this. See, I am asking the user to enter the number of elements that you want to print in the series. But I have defined it as 100. I have 100 memory locations wherein I can store the elements of Fibonacci series. But out of 100, I am asking how many elements he wants to print actually. In that case, I am prompting a message in a standard output function, a formatted output function telling enter the number of elements to be printed in the series. Once he sees this particular message, then he will enter some value and that value happens to be 8. That is, he wants to see or he wants to print only 8 number of elements in the Fibonacci series. Based upon his request, what I did, that is, every time I have written a loop right from 0. That is, no, not from 0, but it is from 2 because the very first element itself is 0. That is, fib of 0 is 0, fib of 1 is 1. Therefore, you have to start printing the elements from 2. And this I value will range till n. N is nothing but a value called E8. And whenever the condition becomes true, automatically what you are doing? You are calculating a new element or you are trying to print a new element of your Fibonacci series by adding the previous two elements. That is, fib of I is equal to fib of I minus 1 plus fib of I minus 2. In that case, you are adding the previous two elements and you are trying to print the value of fib of I. So that all the elements, see, the fib of 0 is 0, fib of 1 is 1. By adding these two elements, I am getting fib of 2, that is 1 plus 0 is 1. Then this one and this one, just previous elements, 1 plus 1 is nothing but 2, 2 plus 1 is nothing but 3. Then 3 plus 2 is nothing but 5, 5 plus 3 is nothing but 8, 8 plus 5 is nothing but 13, 13 plus 8 is nothing but 21. This is the way in which you will be printing the elements of a Fibonacci. Next, let us write a program on a ascending order. How you are going to write a program on ascending order? See this. I have defined two header files, stdio.h and conio.h. stdio.h is nothing but it's a header file wherein the implementation of input and output functions has been done, and then all the common functions have been done in a conio.h. And our execution actually starts from main. And once we write this main, then I have a declaration part wherein I have defined some of the variables like I, j, which will be used in my loop. Then temp is nothing but a variable which will be used for swapping. N is nothing but number of elements that I would like to print out of this 100, and a of 100 is nothing but an array which is going to store 100 elements, at most 100 elements, with a common name called a. Once I define all these variables, I have a clear screen function which will be used for printing for clearing the output of the previous program. Then out of this 100, that is, I am asking the user, I am asking the compiler to allocate 100 memory locations for my 100 data. But out of this 100, I may not use all 100 at a time. Therefore, out of this 100, I will be asking the user to enter the number of elements that he wants to, or number of locations that he wants to use out of this 100. And those number of locations are nothing but n, and n is defined in integer. Therefore, formatted input function will be used, and which is expecting one variable, one value which is of type integer, and that value will be stored in the variable called n. Once he enters the value of n, then I will ask the user to enter the number of elements for this n number of memory locations. That is, out of 100 he is using n number of memory locations, and now I want the elements to be stored in these n number of memory locations. And for that one, I will use a for loop, and it is starting from 0 to n. I am starting from 0, right from 0 to n. It is going till n by incrementing the value of I by 1. That is, I am asking the user to enter the number of elements, and those elements will be taken from the keyboard using a formatted input function. That is nothing but scanf, and appropriately, since I am using a loop there, which is starting from 0 by using a control variable called I. I is equal to 0, I is less than n. N is nothing but a maximum number of elements that he wants to have out of 100. That is, whenever the condition I is less than n becomes true, then the first element that we give will be stored in a of 0 because I value is 0. Then the I value will get incremented by 1, it becomes 1. 1 is less than, again 10. If the value of n happens to be 10. 1 is less than 10, therefore the next element that we give it from the keyboard will go in a of 1. Then the next element will be again a of 2, a of 3, a of 4, a of 5, a of 6, a of 7, a of 8, a of 9. Once the value of I becomes 10, 10 is not less than 10, therefore the condition will be dissatisfied and you will move on to the next statement here. Now here the actual logic starts. What is that logic? That is, every time I would like to sort the elements in an ascending order. Let us take, I would like to sort the elements in an ascending order. How to do that one? I am using a nested for loop. A nested for loop wherein the first for loop is ranging right from 0 to n. It is going right from 0 to n. The inner for loop is going from I plus 1. That is, if the value of I is 0, then j will go from 1. That is, 0 plus 1 will be 1. And every time what I am doing, I am checking the element which is there in a of 0 with a of 1. A of 1 in the sense a of j. The element which is, if this I value becomes 1, then this becomes 2. A of 1 will be tested with a of 2. If this is 3, then this will be 4. That what is happening, that is, I am putting my control, that is, my outer loop is stationary at a very first position, and the first element will be checked with the second element, third element, fourth element, fifth element, and a number of elements that I have, and out of which I will come across one element which is smaller out of all the elements, and that element will be placed at the very first element. Like if the value of I is equal to 0 and j value is I plus 1, if this is 0, this becomes 1. Then I am checking even these two conditions are true. I is 0 is less than 10, at the same time 1 is also less than 10. Therefore the element which is there in a of I, that is a of 0, is tested with a of 1. Is tested with a of 1. If the element which is there in a of 0, if it is greater than a of 1, then that is not in ascending order. Instead, you should have an element smaller at the first position. The smallest element should be at the first position. Therefore, this particular condition is violated. If the element which is in the 0th position, if it is greater than the element which is at the first position, then what you have to do? You have to swap those elements. And for the swapping, I am using a temporary variable called temp. The element which is there in a of y will be copied in temp. Then the element which is there in a of j will be overwritten with the value which is there in a of I, and the element which I have copied in temp will be overwritten with the element in a of j, so that a of I, the element which is there in a of I and a of j will be swapped. That is, since the element in a of 1 is smaller than the element which is there in a of I, therefore a of j will occupy the element of the place of a of I. A of j will occupy the place of a of I. Again the value of j will get incremented by 1. Then the value of j was 1, now it becomes 2. That is a of 0, that is element which is in a of 0 will be compared with a of 2. And if a of 2 element, if it is lesser than a of 0, then again there will be a swapping. If the element which is there in a of 2, if it is not lesser than a of I, then no swapping will happen. And again the value of j gets incremented, and that is a of I element will be compared with all the elements. That is, your control will not move on to this particular outer loop till this condition becomes false. You have to keep that in mind. Okay, once your loop has come inside, okay, once your control has come inside by satisfying the condition which you have written in the outer loop, then this particular control will try to execute this loop till this condition becomes false. Until and unless this condition becomes false, your control will not move on to the outer loop. Now what is happening? Your I value is 0, that is stationary, but a of I is getting compared with a of 2, a of 3, a of 4, a of 5, a of 6, a of 7, a of 8 and a of 9. Out of a of 0 to a of 9, whichever element is smaller, that element will be placed in a of I. That will be the very first element, because in the ascending order the smallest element will come at the first position. And then once this condition becomes false, then your control will move on to the outer loop. That is, I value will be incremented here. The I value will be incremented so that the previous value of I was 0, now it will become 1. Now again 1 is less than 10, the condition is true. Now you are going to take the element which is there in a of 1. Now the value of j becomes how much? It will be always one value more than the value of I. Since the value of I is 0, I is 1, the value of j will be 2. Now here what will happen? The element which is there in a of 1 will be compared with the element which is there in a of 2. If a of 1 element, if it is greater than a of 2, If the element which is there in A of 1, if it is greater than A of 2, then you have to swap the element which is there in A of 1 with A of 2. If the condition is not satisfied, that is the element which is there in A of 1 is not greater than the element which is there in A of 2, then there will be no swapping. That is the control will not move into this body of this if statement. Instead, the value of j will get incremented, and then A of 1 will be compared with A of 3. Then A of 1 will be compared with A of 4. If whenever this condition becomes true, then your control will enter inside this if body of a if statement, and there will be a swapping. That is, out of the elements which are from A of 1 to A of n, whichever element is smaller, that element will occupy the second position. Then this condition becomes false. That is, j condition inner loop will become false, and your value of I will be incremented by 1. Now the value of I becomes 3. Subsequently, the value of j becomes 4. So that A of 3 will be placed stationary, and you will be comparing the value of A of 3 with all the rest of the elements, and you will find out the element which is smallest out of A of 3 to A of n, and that element will occupy the element place which is there in A of I. And this particular process will be repeated till all the elements are kept in an ascending order. Once all the elements are in the ascending order, what will happen here? That is, when till what time you are going? Till you go to the n. Till this loop ranges till n. N value is 10. Once the value of I becomes 10, 10 is not less than 10, because 10 is equal to 10 in fact. Since the value 10 is not equal to 10, then you will move on to the statement x, which is understood that till last element you have iterated, and till last element you have found all the elements, and all the elements are kept in a sorted order. Once you have reached to the last element, then the condition becomes false. That is, the condition of outer loop becomes false. Once the condition of the outer loop becomes false, then the control will not enter into the body of a outer loop. Instead, it will go to statement x here. Then what we are printing? We are printing the elements which are in the sorted order. Whatever the elements that we have got now, right now, those elements we will try to print right from 0 to n. Right from 0 to n. The element which is there in A of 0 will be printed first, then A of 1, A of 2, A of 3, A of 4, A of 5, A of 6, A of 7, A of 8, and A of 9. Because the value of n is 10, therefore the number of elements will be from 0 to 9. Once the value of I becomes 10, then this condition will be false, and it will move on to statement x, which is nothing but a get ch, which is a unformatted input function, so that the output will be viewed instantaneously. And that output is something like this. Okay, that is, I am asking the user to enter the number of elements out of 100, because I have allocated 100 memory locations for my task. But out of 100 memory locations, I am using only 5. And I am asking the user to enter those 5 elements. Now he has entered the elements in a descending order, and I want the elements in an ascending order. Provided, let us take another task wherein if the elements are what do you mean by this sorting? Sorting is nothing but arranging the elements in an ascending order or a descending order. If at all you arrange the elements in ascending order or descending order, that becomes sorting, isn't it? That is, if you want to arrange, or if you want to print the elements in a descending order, then what will be the condition? Now I had 2 loops. The first loop, in the outer loop, wherein I am using a control variable called I, which is ranging right from 0 to n, and inner loop which is ranging from I plus 1 to n, and I have written a if condition wherein A of I is tested against A of j. If the element A of I, the element which was stored in a ith location of my array, is compared with the element which is stored in a jth location of my array, that is A of I is compared with A of j. If the element A of I, if it is greater than A of j, I have swapped it, so that the element which is there in A of I has went to the element of A of j, and A of j has come to the place of A of I. But if I want to print the elements in a reverse order, that particular condition has to be changed. What should be the condition? A of I, instead of writing A of I is greater than A of j, you should write A of I is less than A of j, so that the elements will be printed in a descending order. Only that relational operator has to be changed. Instead of greater than, you have to write less than. Then the elements will be printed in a reverse order. In the sense, if previously we have printed the elements in ascending order, now we will be printing it in a descending order. Okay. Now the elements that is given by the user is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and whenever that element, whenever that program gets executed, automatically those elements will be printed in a ascending order. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the elements in a ascending order. In ascending order, the least element will be first, the next higher element, next higher element, next higher element, next higher element. And if the same thing, if you want to print it in a descending order, then the highest element will be the position of first element, then next highest, next highest, next like that. Okay. Now the next program is to find the average. Okay, using a, see, you have to practice as many programs as you can, because arrays happens to be the very important topic in C language, because it is going to accomplish a very big task. Provided if you have large voluminous amount of information, then this array is going to store that particular data by using a single variable. Okay, that is, you are writing a single variable wherein you are specifying the data type and the name of the array, and thereafter you are writing the size. In that particular size, whatever the data that you want to store, you are storing it. It is a very handy tool. In fact, it is a very concise and compact tool wherein you can store voluminous amount of information by writing a single syntax. Therefore, you should have lot many things. Therefore, you have to practice as many programs as you can. Now we have seen lot many programs. In the previous session, we have seen how to initialize the variables of an array and how to display it. Okay, that was a small program that we have seen. And then we have written how to print the elements in ascending order, how to print the elements in a descending order, from a given set of elements, how you are going to find out the largest number, how you are going to find the smallest number. Many things that we have found out in this program, in these slides. Even in this session, I have written a program wherein to find out the numbers of a Fibonacci series, wherein I said you that the very first element will be 0, second element will be 1. By adding those two elements, we will get fib3, that is the third element. Whenever you add the preceding two numbers, then you will be getting the new value of a series. This is a Fibonacci series, very important concept. In this way, we have defined in the previous slide. We have defined how to arrange the elements in ascending or a descending order. All these are very important concepts. Now let us look at the another program which is meant to find out the average for a given set of numbers. Now here again I am including two files. One is stdio.h and another one is conio.h. stdio.h is meant to link our program, because some of the implementations that has been done in stdio.h we are using in our program. Therefore stdio.h, then some of the common functions we are using like clr, scr or getch in our program. Therefore it is mandatory for us to use this conio.h also. And apart from this, I have two variables which are defined, some of the variables which are defined in integer. I have I, j, because these are variables I will be using it in a for loop. Then whenever you want to find out the average, first of all you should have a list of values, and those list of values has to be added up with one another. Once you add up all those values, then you will get a bulk value which is called as sum, and that value has to be divided with the number of elements that you are taking as an you are taking it in a program, and that will result in a average. In the same way, this n happens to be the number of elements that I am trying to take as input for my program out of this 100, and all those n number of elements I would like to add up, and I will store it in a variable called sum. Initial value of sum is 0 because I didn't calculate anything here. And then for doing all this task, I want a array. Okay, the name of the array is A, and which is meant to store 100 number of elements. It can store 100 elements. Out of this 100 elements, I am taking n number of elements, and those number of elements I am calculating the total. I am storing it in sum, and if I divide that value with n, then I will get average. Average is always it will be printed in a float. Okay, because there is a chance of getting a fractional part, and whenever you want to store any element which is having a fractional part, then we will be using a float. Provided if we don't have any fractional part, then we would have used this integer part, integer as a data type. Then the next is I am prompting a message to the user telling us if to enter the number of elements that he wants to, for which he wants to calculate the average out of this 100. That will be done using formatted output function, which is nothing but printf, wherein I am writing a statement telling or prompting a message telling as if to enter the number of elements. Just by seeing this particular message, the user will try to enter the number of elements for which he wants to find out the average, and that value that he enters from the keyboard will be taken up by a formatted input function which is called a scanf. And since all the elements since the element or the value that he is entering is of type integer, the type specifier will be percentage, which has to be enclosed in double quotes followed by a comma and then an address of operator followed by the variable in which the value will be stored. And this is a statement which will be taking the value that a user enters from the keyboard. Once he enters the value called n, then in those n number of memory locations I want the elements to be stored. Out of this 100 memory locations which I have asked the compiler to use, out of this 100 I am using n number of locations, and in this n number of locations I should store the values that is entered from the keyboard. For that sake, I am using a formatted output function called printf, and I am asking the user to enter the elements for which he wants to calculate the sum as well as the average. And for that one, and let us take now whenever I ask the user to enter the elements, then those elements has to go in appropriate place of my array, that is right from a of 0 to a of n. Therefore, I will write a loop which starts from 0 and it goes till n. Okay, the range is from 0 to n. Let us take. Now, whenever he enters the very first element, the value of I will be 0 and 0 is less than, let us take the value of n as 10, 0 is less than 10. Therefore, the very first element will go in a of 0, and the element that you are entering from the keyboard is of type integer. Therefore, the type specifier is %, and since the element that you enter from the keyboard is going inside the computer, therefore we have to use a formatted input function which happens to be scanf. Then the value of I gets incremented by 1. The value of I becomes 1, 1 is less than 10. Therefore, the very first next element that you enter from the keyboard will go in A of 1. Again, that value is of type integer. Therefore, the type specifier is %, and that will be taken inside the computer using a formatted input function called scanf. And this particular process will be repeated till the value of I is less than n. Once the value of I is greater than n or equal to n, then this particular condition becomes false and you will move on to the statement X. But simultaneously, by taking the value from the keyboard, we are doing another operation which is nothing but sum is equal to sum plus a of I. What is this operation? Whenever the very first element I am taking from the keyboard, by taking that element, I am adding that element to the variable called sum. The initial value of this sum is how much? 0. Therefore, sum is equal to 0 plus the element. Let us take the very first iteration. The value of I is equal to 0, and I am trying to store the element which I have entered first from the keyboard in the place called a of 0. Let us take the element in a of 0 is 100. Let us take. Therefore, what will happen? What will be the value of this sum? Sum is equal to 0 plus 100. Therefore, the new value of sum will be 100. For the next time when the value of I becomes 1, if I give 60, let us take, then a of 1 will be 60. Already existing value of sum is 100. 100 plus 60 will become 160, which will be the new value of this sum. For the next value, let us take it as I have entered the value 50, which is going in a of 2. A of 2 is less than 10. Therefore, the element which is going in a of 2. Let us take that value is 50. Already the existing value of this sum is 160 plus 50 will become 210. That is, every time you enter the element from the keyboard, every time I am adding that particular value to the previous value of my sum. The initial value of this sum is 0. Every time I am adding the new value to this particular sum. So that the number of elements that you are entering is 10. For 10 number of elements, I am calculating the sum. I am adding all the 10 number of elements and I am storing it in a variable called this sum. Once this condition becomes false, when this condition becomes false, whenever the value of I is equal to n, that is, I was meant to enter 10 number of elements, which is starting from 0 to 9. And whenever the value of I becomes 10, 10 is not equal to 10. 10 is not less than 10, sorry. Therefore, this condition becomes false. Once this condition becomes false, you will move on to the statement X. What is this statement X? This statement X is telling whatever the value that you have calculated which is stored in this sum, you have to just divide that value with n. This is nothing but average, total by the number of elements. That is, sum by n will give you the average. Since I am using a division operator here, there is a chance that I may get a fractional number. Therefore, this average is stored in a float, defined in float. Therefore, now once I have calculated this average, then sum will be Sum is defined in integer, therefore type specifier is %d. Average is written in float, which is nothing but a average is written in float, therefore %f as a type specifier. This %d corresponds to this sum, and this %f corresponds to avg. Once I have done with this particular program, then get ch, which is a statement X, which will give you the output, and the output is something like this. That is, I am asking the user to enter the number of elements he has entered, and these elements are 45, 60, and by the time you enter this 45, the sum will be calculated. Sum is equal to 0 plus 45, then 45 plus 0 plus 45 plus 60, 0 plus 45 plus 60 by plus 70, 0 plus 45 plus 60 plus 70 plus 80, 0 plus 45 plus 60 plus 70 plus 80 plus 90. Then the condition becomes false. Once you get this one, that value will be sum, and if you divide this 345 by the value n, then that will be the average. This is the way in which you will be performing a average to calculate the average of a given number. In the next session, we will try to see the two-dimensional array, how actually a two-dimensional array will work, then what is the declaration, how to perform the declaration of a two-dimensional array, then initialization part, then program to do this initialization, then with these are some of the programs that we have to study. Thank you.